welcome to the invoicing review and approval training session. So this will just cover kind of from the PM's view, how do they review an invoice that gets sent to them through imaging and process management, IPM. So we'll kind of cover that. The PAs have a more in-depth training that Lisa hosts. Lisa's also on with us today. That covers the more in-depth, how do they actually scan and route the invoice through the system. But so we're just covering the review and approval today. To start with, the system that we use for processing images or our direct invoicing, that's our imaging and process management. There's our other system that we use for our subcontractor pay applications is Textura. We do prefer, though technically not required, we do really prefer, and I don't know why you wouldn't use Textura on any project for subcontract management, because the pay application process is so much more streamlined by using Textura. The old school invoices, pay apps used to have to go through imaging. The reason that we took them out and go into Textura is if you need to revise a pay app, you actually have to have like 4 additional people touch it before it can get revised and re-entered in the system, because if it gets routed to a PM and then, okay, you don't agree with how much the sub's billed, then you had to reject it, and then accounting had to reject it, and then the PA had to remove it from the system and then re-enter it and reroute it, and so it became a big process, and so that's why we push out all the subcontracts into Textura that we can. Really, unless it's kind of a one-time, hey, they're going to do their work, they're going to come out, do it all in 1 month, and bill us once. To me, you put everything else in Textura. Most of what then gets processed now in imaging is more like your office supplies and utilities, those things that kind of come out as you incur the costs, on a monthly or weekly basis, then we'll get sent invoices. So that's what we process through IPM. IPM is an Oracle tool, so it's tied to our E1 system. You can find it if you go under Tools to Imaging and Process Management. You'll get this kind of loading page, and then you just click Continue to Oracle Invoice Routing. And that brings you to the login page. Now for myself, I just have this bookmarked, so I can kind of skip going to the tools if you want. This is the page you want to bookmark. It takes you right into your login. Single sign-on, meaning it's the same username and password that you use to log into your computer in the morning. And when it first loads up, you'll get a little home page with a menu down the left-hand side. So up in the top, you see this My Approver Invoices. This is where we'll go to review and approve invoices. If you ever need to search for previously reviewed and approved invoices, that's down here on the left. There's a number of types of search entries. If you kind of hover, you can kind of see them. They're cut off a little bit, but you can scroll over and kind of read through them. Different ways to search for invoices. Yes.
I was just going to point out, if you click on that Save Searches, the bold Save Searches up there, it actually brings up a better drop-down menu. And it's a little bit easier to read to see what those options are. So that might be just a little bit more helpful. You can search by just your job number, by looking to payment lookup by BU would look by everything for your project.
So
down just those.
This is a nice setup,
Yep.
So hopefully you don't have to search too often, but if you do, this is the way to do it. So for today's main topic here, we'll go into the reviewers portion. So that's under right at the top, My Approver Invoices. And this will load a top and a bottom section. Both of these can have invoices in them. The difference being is if they show up in the top portion, that means you've looked at it previously but opted to skip it or not approve it at that point in time. And then the bottom are all your new invoices. You do need to check the box for each one that you want to do. You don't have to do them individually. If you have 20 or 30, you can do them all in one package, but you'll have to go through and check the box for all of them. One thing, if you do have invoices in the top and the bottom, you can't put them into one package for review. So you either need to opt to check all the boxes in the top and create a package, or check boxes in the bottom and create a package. But the system won't let you combine them into one package. Don't know why. It's just the way it's always worked. So once you've checked the boxes, then you're going to click the button for package bar. That's the same thing at the top. There's a package bar button as well. And this will load the reviewing screens. Now the screen will split. On the right-hand side, you will see an image. This is the scanned image for the invoice that you're reviewing and approving. And then on the left, you'll get the information for all of the routing on the project. So for this first one here, take a look at the invoice. And what you're doing is you want to verify a couple different things. One, that the information at the top, this is all the general payable information, is correct. And then at the bottom, this is the project-specific routing information. So in the top, you're looking to see, okay, who's the vendor name. That comes through as the vendor on the left-hand side. You're going to look at the business unit that you're routing for. That name should show up there. It's also the first 9 digits in the account routing information down below. Like I said, the vendor name and the invoice amount. So you do want to scroll down to the bottom, because often you'll see you want to make sure that taxes have been included and are calculated correctly. So don't just look at the subtotal of the cost of the items, but also scroll down. Make sure that the amount that's getting paid includes all taxes and shipping extras down calculated below. So you want the total amount of the invoice to make sure it shows up here. Let's see. With this as well, typically for the invoices that as we currently process them, we get the paper invoice and then we stamp it. And then we put the coding information in here. So if this is all coded correctly, then you're just verifying that this ties out to where you want it assigned to. So in this case, you've got a job number and you've got a cost code information here. On the left-hand side, where that ties out is on the bottom portion. So you've got your job number. The middle 5 digits are the cost code type. So whether it's an ML, PK, all the different cost code types that we have. So generally, you're applying an invoice against an M code. So the most common one you're going to see here is the 11420, because that's the code number equivalent to an M code for material invoice. The last 6 digits, that's your cost code that it's getting assigned to for the project. So in this case, the 012010 happens to be office supplies for that code. Now, if you have an invoice that's getting split, so if this had, this happens to be iPads. If we're ordering 2 different iPads and we want it split between 2 different project numbers, you can do that. So you just have to make sure the top portion still adds up to the total invoice, but then in the bottom portion you'll see 2 line items, or depending on how many ways you're splitting it, you'll see the individual breakouts. So if this was 2 iPads each for $600, you'd see the first line coded to one project, then one cost code, and the second line coded to the second project and second cost code. But again, verify that the total amount adds up to the total amount in the top portion. That's how we double check that these 2 bottom values equal the top value. The other thing you'll note with the image on the right, in the bottom right-hand corner here, it's saying 1 of 2, so that's the individual pages. As I just scroll up and down, I'm using just my scroll wheel on the mouse, it doesn't automatically roll to the next page like when you're using Bluebeam or Adobe or Adobe Reader or something like that. So if you want to see the second page, you do need to go up to these arrows in the top, and then you can jump to the next page. This allows you to review it review the extra pages as well. So that's how you flip between pages. Now, if you happen to note taxes are not applied, and they should be, and I know taxes vary state to state, and sometimes a project might be tax exempt or not. So that's going to make sure that as part of the review process, make sure the appropriate taxes are applied. Um, so if taxes are not applied or not applied at the correct rate, Ryan will still pay the correct sales tax on the project, and then we will directly assign that. But what you do need to note on here is if you catch that a sub or a vendor has not paid taxes and it does need to be done, you need to annotate that. So you can actually come in here and highlight. So just like in Bluebeam or something, you can grab the highlighter and highlight a block here. And then I can actually come in and add a text box and say, taxes not correct. And then accounting, that'll get flagged by accounting when it gets paid to pay the vendor what they've requested, but then we'll pay the state or county or city as appropriate the adjusted a tax rate. So, because Ryan is liable for those taxes if we fail not to pay it correctly. A lot of times, if it's a vendor that we're going to do a lot of work with, we're going to send the invoice back and have them correct the taxes. But ideally, hopefully if we catch the first one, then we can get them to revise the subsequent ones. So we might pay the first one or two with the not correct taxes, but then work with the vendor to make sure all future invoices for that project do get billed at the correct tax rate. Let's see. That's kind of the highlight for the review process, so that kind of covers what you want to look at. One thing just to always be careful of, don't just always assume that an invoice is for the project, even if they've listed it here. I know a lot of subs, Minneapolis especially, we have a lot of projects that are all happening around Minneapolis. That'll happen for all of our major hubs. You're going to have a vendor working on 4 of your different projects. Just every once in a while, you need to kind of give it that gut check. Does this really seem like the right invoice for the project at hand? Because sometimes what will happen is they'll place an order and, geez, Daryl has been calling for the Whipple project for the last 3 months, and now one week he switches to, the first week of June he switched to a different project. Well, he's calling them. They're just still assuming he's on Whipple, and they don't make the change that it's for a different project number. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, especially as you have personnel switching between jobs, that if they're the one always calling in the order, something could get tagged wrong, just even in the vendors and notes to us. Most of the time it works out pretty well, but don't be afraid to question it and just do a double check when you see it. Once you've confirmed everything, yeah.
I was just going to also add in, when you look down at the bottom of that invoice and you see the subtotal and tax, the other thing to just be a double check for the PAs is that the total amount is the $619 and not $575. Some invoices it gets a little confusing at times maybe, and it's possible that a PA could put it in as $575. So just be that double check for them and make sure that the total amount is there, that the taxes are actually included in the amount that you see over on the left side.
Yep, absolutely. Once you've reviewed everything and the coding's, you're comfortable with the coding, it's the right job, everything's set up right, then you can go on for approval or rejection if that's something were wrong. So one of the things you can do is, whether you're approving it or rejecting it, doesn't matter. You can always add a comment. So down at the bottom of the coding side, you have an option to add comments. Training comments. So you can type anything in here, and that'll get attached to that record for reference for the accountants to look at, especially in that tax case. It might say correct taxes to whatever the rate is, 7.25 or whatever. You can put that comment in here as well. Once you have entered a comment for any reason, or if anybody prior to you has entered a comment, you'll see the view comments has turned yellow. So now anybody that's reviewing this invoice can click that and see the record of any comments. So if I said, hey, please revise the cost code, and then it gets pushed to accounting, they push it back to the PA, the cost code gets revised, I might see the notes in there that, okay, Ed, hey, Ed in accounting has revised it and sent it back to Casey, and Casey's recoded it for me to the code I requested. something like that. They'll show that records of who's made comments along the way. If you're going to approve it, right above that option you have your approval status. So listed here are 4 different options. You can approve no changes, approve short pay, reject correction required, and reject non-payable. Pretty much the only 2 I've ever used is either approved with no changes or rejected correction required. I've never used the short pay because I figure for short paying I might as well just reject it and have it revised in the first place. And I'm not sure what the rejected non-payable reason is either. I've never used that one as well. So I just stick to either approved, no changes, or rejected with correction. If you are going to reject it, then you want to select rejection, and then I always add a comment. So that's where see other AP correction, see comment. So that's where I'm rejecting. I'm telling you, hey, I've made a comment. I want it coded differently, or this is supposed to go to a different project, or this is a duplicate billing or something like that. Whatever it may be, if I'm rejecting it, I always add a comment, and then I always put that note in here to force people to go look at that comment, why it's being rejected. Otherwise, if you're approving it, you just select approve. In either of these cases, whichever option you choose, if you're rejecting it or approving it, once you're done with that invoice, then you go up here and click complete. I'm not going to do it for this invoice because I need to actually review it because I haven't seen this one before. But for approval, once you're done, you hit complete. If you hit save, it's not actually going to accept that approval. It's complete. That's where you're saying, okay, I've done my review, I've done my approval, and now I'm completing the action, so then it'll move on to the next invoice. If you get into it, like I'm doing with this one, hey, with this one I didn't want to approve quite yet today, you can always skip a package as well. So that's not going to skip all of them if you've got 20 of them in a package. It's just going to skip to the next invoice in that package. So that's what I'm going to do right now. No, I don't want it to save those notes because those notes were fine, or the invoice was fine. So the same thing, so this will just keep happening. If you have 10, 20, 30 invoices that you're approving at once, then you'll just keep getting the next one when you either hit complete because you've approved or rejected it, or you hit skip. In either case, it'll take you on to the next invoice. And then you can just kind of keep going through it, and you follow the same process. So again, you're reviewing the image, make sure that the vendor name is correct, the project name is correct. Then you want to, again, verify that the total, not the subtotal, on the invoice is correct. So, like here, okay, there's $39 in the subtotal, plus there's some other additional charges and fees, get you to 48. So that's where you're going to come over and see, oh, geez, this invoice was entered incorrectly because the total on the image doesn't match the total in the routing information. And this was a test one that I had Cheryl help me out and entered for me. So that's how you can kind of catch that. And in this case, I would just come in here, I would add a new comment. And routing total doesn't match. And then in this case, because this is just a training, we'll just delete this one out of the system. And taking a little bit of time. Normally when you are working in the system, it's fairly quick once you get logged in. I'm not sure why it's slowing down here. Okay, there we go. It double saved that. So in this case, then I would come in here and I'm going to reject it, and I'm going to see the comment. So now that I'm rejecting this invoice, I just hit complete. If I had additional invoices, it would take me back to it would take me to the next one. Otherwise, now that I'm done, it's completing it and bringing me back to the home screen for additional reviews. I think that's to highlight. Lisa, anything you can think of I missed covering?
I really don't have anything else to add.
I guess the only suggestion that I have for teams, and this kind of working, it is a teamwork effort with the PMs and PAs. We get invoices throughout the month. I just recommend trying to do, maybe once a week, work through a portion of it. Even if you don't get fully caught up for all the invoices you receive for the week, if you leave all the invoices for the end of the month, there's a lot of other activities happening at the end of the month, and then you're going to have meetings, and then you've got pay applications and profit projections and all those other things that are going on that can distract you. And just to kind of help from a workload management, if you can, if the PAs can get in once a week on a whatever day it is, on a Monday or something, or Tuesday, and then the PMs can go in once a week and try to review them on Wednesday or Thursday, it just keeps the project running a little more smoothly. Plus it helps ensure if we have, we'll get some of our invoices where, the due date for payment may be next week. So the sooner you get it in the system and approved, the sooner accounting can try and pay it and make sure that we don't get late fees. So.
It also correlates to when you're doing your owner billings at the end of the month. You want to make sure you have all the costs that you possibly can so that you include that with your owner billing and get paid for those items.
Yep, absolutely. I think I'm going to unmute everyone. If you have some questions, we're happy to stay on and answer any questions you may have. Otherwise, I think that's the end of the formal training today.